Let's talk about something really personal. Something I think a lot of us feel, but maybe don't always say out loud. You know that feeling of spiritual disconnection? That sense that you're far from God, even when you feel like you're doing all the right things?
So let me just ask you this straight up. Have you ever been there? Maybe you're in a small group or just talking with a friend, and you're saying all the right words. You know the doctrine, you know the answers, but deep down there's this gap. You can feel it. Your heart just isn't there.
Listen, if that hits home for you at all, I just want you to hear this. You are so not alone. Feeling that disconnect is actually a really common and really honest part of the journey. It's not a sign that you failed. It's more like an invitation to look a little deeper at what's really going on inside.
So where does that feeling of distance even come from? Well, a lot of the time, one of the core causes is something the Bible calls the deception of idols. And really getting our heads around this is the key to figuring out what might be watering down our faith.
Now, when we hear the word idol, I get it. Our minds probably jump to ancient history, golden statues and all that. But for our conversation, the definition is way more modern and way more personal. An idol is simply anything, and I mean anything, an idea, a goal, a person that competes with God for your ultimate hope.
And this is how it works. These competing hopes, they act like deceptions. They're sneaky. They don't just show up and announce themselves. They kind of quietly creep in. And before we know it, they're diluting the truth we believe in and creating that spiritual distance that we feel in our hearts.
And what's so fascinating is that this isn't some new 21st century problem. Not at all. It is a timeless human struggle. In fact, if we look back, we can find an ancient prayer in Scripture that reveals this exact same conflict between our words and our hearts.
Okay, so check this out. In the book of Jeremiah, the people of Judah go to the prophet and they make this really bold, super sincere sounding declaration. They say, "We will obey the voice of the Lord our God, that it may be well with us." I mean, the words are perfect, right? The intention seems so pure. But let's see what happens next.
And here it is. The breakdown. What they said was, "We will obey." What they did was, well, they didn't obey. This is that classic gap between our words and our actions. See, their hearts were already set on a totally different path, which just proved their true hope wasn't actually in God, no matter what they promised.
So that brings us right back to today. We might not be dealing with ancient prophets, but we absolutely face our own competing hopes. The challenge for us is to unmask these modern-day idols that, honestly, operate in the exact same way.
So before we look at a few examples, let's just pause. I want to ask you this, and be really honest with yourself. If you look deep down, past all the right answers you're supposed to have, where do you place your ultimate hope for the future? For your security, your happiness, your well-being?
There are a few really common places our hope can get misplaced. Things like horoscopes, which offer guidance from somewhere other than God, or the practice of manifesting, which can subtly become a belief that we are the ultimate creators of our own reality, or just trusting solely on our own hustle, our own effort. And a huge one for so many of us, placing our ultimate hope and our sense of safety in our financial security. The thing is, none of these are necessarily bad on their own, but they become idols the moment they take God's place as our ultimate hope.
Okay, so we've kind of diagnosed the issue here, but just acknowledging the problem is only half the battle. The really great news is that there is a clear and hopeful path forward. So let's talk about how we can start closing that distance and find our way back to the heart. And here is the most important thing to get. This isn't about gritting your teeth and just trying harder to be a better person. That usually just leads to more exhaustion and feeling like a failure. The real solution is a change of direction. It's about consciously, intentionally redirecting your hope back to where it truly belongs.
So how do we do that? Well, here's a really simple but powerful 3-step framework. First, you have to identify it. Give it a name. What has been competing for your hope? Is it your career, your bank account, your own abilities? Second, confess. And I mean just acknowledge this divided loyalty to God, not from a place of shame or beating yourself up, but from a place of simple honesty. And third, reset. Make that conscious, intentional choice to set the Lord back at the very center of your life and your hope. That final step, that reset, is just captured so perfectly in Psalm 16. The psalmist says, "I have set the Lord always before me." Did you catch that? It's an active choice. It's a deliberate setting. It's this daily, sometimes hourly decision to place God front and center. And what's the result of that choice? I shall not be shaken.
And so as we wrap this up, it really all comes down to this one simple but pretty profound question for you to take with you. Looking at your life,
Your thoughts, your worries, your dreams, what have you set before you?